Hurricane-force winds and fears about flooding. This was the scene in Nome tonight as Alaska's west coast is being battered.
Good evening. Forecasters say it's one of the strongest storms in recorded history to ever hit Alaska.
And tonight, communities all along Alaska's west coast are bearing the brunt of brutal winds and the threat of storm surge.
Ted Land and photojournalist Carolyn Hall Jensen are in Unalakleet tonight, and they filed this report as residents brace for the worst.
The wind is really starting to pick up in Unalakleet this evening. It was calm much of the day. Then around 6 p.m. it started getting really breezy. Not a lot of people out and about this evening. Most people staying inside, preparing for this massive storm. Some have left town altogether. Just down the street is the school. That's one of the evacuation centers.
You can actually see, let me show you this. That snow is blowing into the building even though the door is closed. Let me take you outside, show you what people here are dealing with and why folks are taking this storm so seriously. Okay, here's an emergency phone number for you guys in Nome. If you cannot call 911, which I'm hearing you cannot, it's 304-4911. The concern among residents is that a storm surge would push into this kind of basin, into some of the houses that are just beyond these structures here.
We're going to go to Unalakleet and in Alaska. Joining us now live is KTUU reporter Ted Land. I know there's about a 6-second delay, Ted. What's the latest there?
Good morning, Al. This is one of those western coastal communities in Alaska that's really feeling the full brunt of this winter storm. As you can see, the lights are on, the heat is on inside the school here where we're set up. This is one of the evacuation shelters here in Unalakleet where people can come if they don't feel safe in their homes tonight because of the winds or the possibility of the storm surge. Good. Someone watching from northern Nevada. How many people are in the shelter is a question. Okay, good question. None. From my knowledge, we haven't seen anything. The gymnasium is dark. They turned off the lights. They have cots, but they're not being used. Another person asks, can I see the ocean from where I am? No, I cannot. It's close, though. It's a few hundred yards from where we are.
The storm surge is the worry now. This is video of the surge splashing over the bluff of Little Diomede Island, located in the middle of the Bering Strait. The massive storm continues to bombard the western coast of the state tonight. Good evening. That video is just one of the numerous pieces of evidence of the effects from this fierce Bering Sea storm.
It's a similar situation in Unalakleet. That's where Channel 2's Ted Land spent the night last night.
We heard locals say it more than once. The storm that swept onshore late in the night should have had a name. It was so fierce and unrelenting, the west coast of Alaska hadn't seen anything like it in decades. To just call it another weather system would have been a serious understatement.
It's just after midnight, and this is the strongest that we felt the wind all evening. Winds are gusting about up to 60 miles an hour in some parts of town, 50 miles an hour in other parts. Winds really started picking up around 6 o'clock in the evening. By 8 o'clock, they got even stronger, and this is by far the strongest we felt the gusts of the entire evening.
The community of Unalakleet hardly slept a wink. How could you in these conditions? The winds died down significantly by daybreak. But then, another threat started rising.
I'm worried after they told us that it was coming in so fast.
I'm not real hopeful that we're going to keep water out of town. I mean, doesn't look good right now.
Jeff Erickson made the decision early. Round up the kids and put them to work building a barrier around the garage. It was like preparing for a hurricane.
Go ahead and get a couple there, ready to base.
Except with hurricanes,
It's good rows, side by side.
you don't have to worry about frozen sandbags.
It is rising minute by minute. Take a look at what the water's like right now. We've been out here about 10 minutes, and it's still coming up foot by foot as the day progresses, and we're not even at high tide yet.
Well, I think you can worry only so much, and then there's nothing you can do. I mean, we can't move our house, so.
Andriy Grishkowski and the kids from across the street didn't seem particularly bothered that the surge was coming within feet of their oceanfront property.
It looks cool, kind of.
At least the windows were secure. If things got really ugly, they said they'd evacuate to higher ground. Out at the airport, the crashing waves threatened one of the hangars. Maintenance crews fought the water with snow. We had to wonder if that barrier would stand a chance. But with the ocean rising so rapidly, it was really their only defense. Fire investigators are still on scene here in Cantwell. They've been here all day, but they haven't been able to get much done because it's just too hot. Nearly 24 hours after it went up in flames, this site continues to smolder. Small flames in other areas, and the smoke hangs low over this part of town. The gaping hole where the Chevron station once stood is nearly 15 feet deep.
This place is well known, and it's kind of a big deal for a community like this.
Investigators say the explosion hit with incredible force, sending merchandise and people flying, even knocking down an entire wall. Some of the victims ran back in to help others, one man going in multiple times. Troopers say he was 26-year-old Samuel Allen of Cantwell, and he was eventually transported to Fairbanks to recover from his injuries.
All I can say is that everybody right now is doing good. It looks like everybody made it out. And, you know, a few minor injuries, and, you know, some folks have, you know, sustained some burns and some other from debris flying.
There were very few businesses to begin with in this community, which is now left with a single gas station. Love them or hate them, roundabouts are not going away anytime soon. The Alaska Department of Transportation really seems to like designs like this. So if drivers are still hesitant, they'll just have to learn to go with the flow.
Morning. How's it going?
It's not just the lattes that draw customers to the Cafe de Arte hut along Huffman Road. Sometimes drivers just need to let off some steam.
Oh yeah, everybody has something to say about it.
It's been a frustrating summer with all the construction.
We actually did a deal, $2.50 for espresso drinks.
The road's since reopened, and now they really have something to talk about.
I like the roundabouts. They keep the traffic moving.
Anchorage has come a long way since its first roundabout took shape back in 2005.
Low boy configurations, the kind that that wasn't good.
There are now 10 in town, but you get the sense there's still a little apprehension. So a few things to keep in mind. As you approach the roundabout, look down. Those arrows indicate where you'll end up. Right lane will take you right, left lane takes you left. Both lanes also continue straight. When you actually get to the roundabout, slow down, but you don't have to stop unless there's a car already in the circle. Remember, the traffic always flows one direction, counterclockwise. And here's something a lot of drivers are ignoring. Use your turn signal when you finally exit. Oh, and while you're there, keep an eye out for guys like George Dooley, who might not see you.
It's pretty crazy sometimes with the traffic we have. Seems like the rudest person makes it through first.
If you miss your turn, don't stress, because in this 360-degree design, you always get another chance. We're coming up on the 10-year anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. There have been so many changes over the past decade, most notably among national security. They can plan for future threats all they want, but there's nothing quite like a real-life demonstration. I went along yesterday on a mock flight gone wrong over Alaska and Russian airspace. This passenger jetliner is doomed before it takes off. The Air Force presumes a hijacker made it through security and onto the plane, where he'll soon take over the cockpit. He won't respond to air traffic controllers, and the Air Force must make some quick decisions. Of course, it's just a drill, but the scenario is all too real, and all the more relevant as the United States approaches an important milestone.
The fact that we are 1 month away from the anniversary, the 10th anniversary of 9/11, clearly sharpens our mind and sharpens our focus.
On board are U.S., Canadian, and Russian military officials. They're working together on this exercise for the second year in a row, trying to improve cooperation and coordination, which has not always been so smooth.
Right here on the timeline. Well, the communication was always there, I suppose, at the higher levels, but it was challenging at the tactical level, which is what we're operating at right now.
It takes just minutes for U.S. F-15 fighters to track us down. They're trying to get as close as possible to actually look into our jetliner and find out if there's a problem.
They're basically telling the pilot of this aircraft, hey, pay attention to me because you need to follow my instructions from here on out.
They decide we're not a threat and allow us to continue out over the Bering Sea. They're continuing to track us, though, and just gave the neighbors a heads up that we're on our way.
We just crossed over the international date line and are now just a few hundred miles from the Russian mainland.
Petropov control, fencing 1220, go ahead.
Almost out of nowhere appears a pair of Russian Su-27 fighters. These guys get a lot closer than the Americans and stay there for several minutes.
Yeah, yes, I can see the I can see his eyes, actually. I can see him waving.
The Russian military officials said they were not authorized to talk to the American media about this particular drill, at least not on the flight. But Russian TV correspondent Alexei Golovko gave us some perspective on what we just witnessed.
When else in time could you remember where you have F-15s and Su-27s at the same time in the air, not actually competing with each other or fighting with each other, but trying to achieve the same goal and complementing each other in the airspace?
We turn around and head back to Alaska, once again escorted by U.S. F-15s. The military planners behind this drill say it went just as planned, but that here on out their primary goal is to keep future threats on the ground, because if it's gotten this far, the potential for disaster is almost surely too close. It's not like the folks at the Wasilla Senior Center need a steady stream of visitors to keep them busy.
8, 2, 3, pause, down.
There's already lots to do here.
I play cards 4 nights a week with 5 women, and none of them are my wife. So how many men can play with 5 women at one time?
And most like it that way.
Today's bingo day.
But every once in a while, just the right one comes along.
It's going to be something new.
Good morning, everyone.
And for a few minutes at least, bingo can wait.
We are going to have a special guest with us today, all the way from Kansas.
For my mind to accept the fact.
Jimmy Ball has been entertaining crowds for much of his life.
Ever since I was 12 years old.
He knows what an audience likes.
I'm going to twist my body just a little bit. And that should allow it to enter the cardiac sphincter muscle, which is the opening to the stomach.
And so the 76-year-old thought he'd volunteer a little time on his Alaska vacation.
I hope this works.
Proving to this crowd,
those swords look pretty long.
You're never too old.
Let's give her a nice round of applause. Thank you so much. Give me a hug if you would.
Jimmy says he's the oldest practicing sword swallower in the world.
I call this my drink mixer.
He does coat hangers, too.
Now.
It's amazing. My stomach and my heart were shaking. But I didn't tell him I had Parkinson's until it was all over with.
Even after all those years, Jimmy says it never gets old.
I can see where sometimes they'd like a little entertainment. And I love doing it. And I love the people.
They seemed to think it was worthwhile, too.
Something different for the people here, and they all enjoyed it.
Even better.
Only 8.
5532.
That is 115.2.
It didn't interfere with cribbage.